Stacking order of objects on the web is also very important because you want to make sure you know exactly which objects are going to be in front of one another when you view them on your website. So in this movie, I'm going to show you how to manipulate the stacking order of objects in a couple of different ways. First and foremost is just the general stacking order. And what I'm going to do now is just select this little piece right here, and I'm going to right-click it. And I'm going to choose Arrange and choose Send Backward. And when I do that, you're going to notice that it goes behind this object over here on the right. When I right-click again and choose Arrange, Send Backward, it's going to go behind the circle right here. However, if I were to drag it up, you notice that it is still on top of this object up here. So again, right-clicking, choosing Arrange, Send Backward, that takes it behind that one, but it's still on top of this one. And so every single object sort of exists in its own plane when you're dealing with this application. And so in order to make it go all the way to the back, you can right-click, choose Arrange, and choose Send to Back, and that's just going to take it all the way to the back. If you want to bring it all the way to the front, right-click, choose Arrange, and choose Bring to Front. That's going to bring it on top of everything on the canvas once again, just like it was when we started. Now, in addition to just generally manipulating the stacking order, you can also use layers inside of Adobe Muse, which might seem a little strange, but when you start to organize your content, this can be a very helpful feature. In fact, when we get into the later chapters, you're going to see that I have several documents that have multiple layers in them, which enable me to do some really cool effects, like have a sticky header or a sticky footer and that kind of thing. So, learning how to manipulate layers is very, very important. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new layer on top of layer 1, and we're just going to have layer 2. And then I'll create another layer called layer 3. And so what we're going to do now is just rename these. So in order to rename layers, just double-click on the layer, and it will automatically come up and allow you to rename it. So in this case, I'm going to call this one Circles and hit OK. Then double-click layer 2, and I'm going to name this one Rectangles, hit OK. And then finally, layer 3, we're going to call this one Square, and hit OK. And so here's how we're going to manipulate the objects and put them onto the layers. First off, we're going to see what exactly is on the Circles layer, because that's the only one that has a little twirl icon that allows me to get down and see what's in there. So it's actually all of the rectangles living on this one layer. And you'll notice in the Layers panel, I have a visibility icon, same as I would in something like Photoshop or Illustrator. I also have a target over here on the right where I can click and it will select the object that it corresponds to. So in this case, I want to keep the circles, but I want to put the rectangles on a different layer. So I need to find those rectangles. So this one right here, that's going to be the top one, and this one right here, that's going to be this one. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this rectangle, hold down the Command or Control key, and select this rectangle. And then what we're going to do is just drag these up. And you see that little white line? We're going to drop them when that white line is in between rectangles and circles. And when I do that, those rectangles disappear from this layer, and they are now on this layer. And how do I know they're there? Well, I can click and select them, and there you can see that there they are. So we'll collapse those up, and now we need to go find the square. That should be the bottommost rectangle here because that was the first one I drew. So as you draw things, they go backward in the stacking order. So here's the stacking order. This topmost object was one of the more recent ones. And so here I can also just drag the target up and then drop it on the square. And when I do that, that is now on that layer. So now, according to this, the rectangles are in the middle. They're actually on top of the circles, and that's why this rectangle still appears above these circles. But what if I drag this whole layer down underneath circles? Watch what happens to the rectangle. It actually goes behind them. Same as if I were earlier right-clicking and choosing Send to Back. But I have better control over these because I can control big groups of objects all at one time simply by manipulating these layers. When I create a new website project, most of the time I go ahead and create 3 layers. I create a header layer, a footer layer, and what I call a content layer, making it easy for me to place things in the header, in the footer, and then building out a huge thing in the middle for content. You could also segment the content areas out into other layers if you want to. You can have just about as many layers as you need over here in the Layers panel. It's a very good way to keep yourself organized and also a great way to change the stacking order of multiple objects at one time.